Welcome to the live show 119, Crossroads of Conflict. The US halts aid to Ukraine, EU, UK push forward, and America's bid for peace with Russia. And we're streaming live from Minsk, Belarus, both on Rumble and YouTube. Tonight, we're standing at the edge of history. The US has just dropped a bombshell. No more intelligence, no more weapons to Ukraine. They're hitting the pause, shifting the gears, and making a play for peace with Russia. But across the Atlantic, the EU and UK aren't backing down. They're doubling down, pumping arms and money in to keep the war machine running. The world's holding its breath. Will this geopolitical standoff fizzle out, or are we standing on a new escalation? We're diving deep into the fallout, I'm still laughing, and the power players and see what's happening next. Plus, we've got exclusive footage from Michael and Jan's Minsk adventure, taking you through the Aviation Museum, the Great Patriotic War Museum, Khatyn Memorial, Stalin Line, the gun range, the haunting TRASCIANIEC Concentration Camp, ice hockey showdown, some of the best restaurants, the stunning Belarus National Library, and more. And this is Minsk like you'd never seen it before. We'll also be covering the latest in Belarus, including the vibrant Women's Day celebration lighting up the country. Last show we pulled in over 21,000 views, but I suspect we'll see half of that tonight without Michael and Jan's audience boosting the numbers. Tonight's show will likely run under that, and also will probably be under the 2-hour mark as a result. Right now I need you to do a couple things. Share the link. Let's get the viewer count higher than I expect. Hit the thumbs up. It helps the algorithm push this show out. Subscribe if you haven't already. Jump in the chat and I'll be reading the comments as we go. First of all, I'd like to welcome two guests tonight. One in the studio. Andrew has been on the show a few times.
Hi, thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, how are you? And let everybody know where you are. And I'll also put these links in the chat while you're talking.
I'm good. Took a few rest days from dieting down for a bodybuilding competition. And I recently created a Rumble channel, so if you're interested in learning about health, fitness, medicine, real stuff, not the stuff that the pharmaceutical industry pushes, not the nonsense that's taught in medical school, not the nonsense that's even on YouTube and on the internet, because people think, oh, well, I got freedom of information, I watch YouTube. Well, most of those people don't know what they're talking about, but if you want real health, medical, and fitness information, check out my Rumble. It's currently named Hutchings Health. The name may change in the future, but Dave's got a link to it. And yeah, go there. It's going to start filling up with great videos. And you can also check out my website, andrewhutchings.org, where you can hire me for personal one-on-one consultations by the hour or by the month.
Great. And also we've got one of a guest coming from the UK who has also been on the show before, and we'll welcome Drew. And I'll just grab him. There he is. Turn him up. And hello, and how can people find you?
Hi, gentlemen. Well, I do have a YouTube channel. It's called Let Me Look TV, where I've posted various bits and bobs over the years. Although, due to health, haven't really been using it very much.
Due to health, it sounds like you need to talk with me.
Well, I certainly need access to some healthcare, which is quite difficult to get in the UK if you're in the wrong. It's a bit of a postcode lottery.
Yeah.
Belarus has great healthcare at affordable prices.
Yeah, I mean, if I'd realised how stuffed I was going to be health-wise when I first originally had issues with my health, I would have taken a flight out of here and gone to Thailand or somewhere like that, you know, to get some proper healthcare. Unfortunately, in the intervening years, my ability and credit rating and all of those kind of things have diminished, so I'm at the mercy of the NHS.
Doesn't sound good.
You've heard about the NHS, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not very good.
I mean, it's a controlled destruction over the last 30 years, basically. I think they were planning on it going somewhat quicker than it has done, but you know, I guess there is some sort of fight back, and it's certainly taken about 3 times as long as they were hoping for to get it to this point.
It's a shame how the West is just being destroyed on purpose, like you said, controlled destruction.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's 30 years now nearly. You know, the sort of early mid-90s is when it really started kicking off. But yeah, we're super in trouble in the UK. We've had since '97 nothing but neoliberals and spivs, basically, either following pretty much pathways to globalism or simply filling their pockets, as the case with the Tories. I mean, the last 14 years of Tory government that we've had have basically been an interim government, you know, a bunch of toffee-nosed spivs just filling their boots.
Just looking at that current prime minister or whoever he is for Great Britain, Keir Starmer, yeah. Just looking at him, I don't like that guy. Something's not right with him.
He got into politics, I don't know, about 10 years ago or something. He was formerly the chief prosecutor, effectively, the director of the Crown Prosecution Service.
That sounds great. Have a prosecutor in charge of the country.
Well, I mean, he's the head of the Crown Prosecution Service, which is what deals with all the courts and the law and all of that stuff in the UK. And during his tenure, he presided over things such as Assange, Savile, Janner, another paedophile MP or alleged paedophile MP, Cyril Smith, and a Liberal MP who was at it for years. I mean, there's some pretty dark stuff in his career history. And then he got into the Labour Party as an MP, helicoptered into a kind of centralist, I suppose you could say, Labour seat. And he then spent a number of years undermining Jeremy Corbyn, who was the elected leader, in a kind of industrial scale smearing campaign with all the Blairites who had been installed over the, previous generation. He seized power of the party, and he did it at a time where we've got an incredible amount of frustration and basically political empathy amongst the population of the UK, because they're just so sick and tired of it. You vote every 4 years and it makes no difference. The governments can't be held to their manifestos. They promise the world and then completely turn on a dime. And
it's fake democracy.
I mean, our parliamentary system has become completely broken over the last 30 years. Again, Blair and his army of lawyers tweaking away at the foundations of British law, and I can't remember the exact number of laws that were passed during Blair's government, but it was in the thousands, and it dwarfed anything previous to that. And of course, going back to Starmer again, he's basically been elected to power on less votes than Jeremy Corbyn got in his last election. Corbyn got, I don't know, 11 or 12 million, maybe 13 million votes. Starmer got in on under 10 million votes because of low turnout. I mean, no one wanted to vote for a helicoptered in, like no one else would take the job at that stage, individual like Rishi Sunak, which is what he was. I mean, he replaced Liz Truss, the lettuce, the shortest lived ever Prime Minister, I think. There's just a great deal of apathy brought around by just pure frustration and loss of faith in the political process in this country. And so we have a deeply unpopular Prime Minister who has no mandate. I mean, he got less than 10 million votes. He got into power with less votes than Jeremy Corbyn lost on. And he's completely abandoned his manifesto and gone full neoliberal. I mean, he's attacking the poor, the disabled, making these mad promises of building 1.5 million homes. And we simply don't have the infrastructure. We haven't been running proper apprenticeships and meaningful training in this country for a generation. We've got a dumbed down, poorly educated generation, and their answer to that has been to flood the country with immigrants, cheap labour, and it's absolutely, completely undermined the fabric of the country. I mean, socially, the social cohesion, practically all the social services and healthcare services and in London, the housing situation, the housing crisis completely insane. I'm the last British Englishman in a 20 apartment block. My new neighbours have just moved in from Somalia. They've lived next door for 3 months now, haven't introduced themselves, but you know, they feel free to use me as their doorman because they obviously don't have enough entry keys to get in. So my door's buzzing every day, and they expect me to let them in, but they don't
because this
have
is their country, not yours.
They don't have the courtesy to come and introduce themselves. I mean, I did wait one time, and I did say, "Hey, hi, excuse me," and they just scuttled into their house, you know. So, you know, we've got whether you consider it uncultured or whatever, however you choose to describe it. The UK is a country that traditionally was a polite, accommodating country. You know, we form orderly queues in bus queues, and you know, we're kind of known for it, or we used to be. And you know, it's turned into a third world free for all now.
Yeah, I was actually just saying to my wife the other day, you know, if the U.S., there's a chance it can survive and be a good country. If Trump and Musk turn it around and make the U.S. a good country, I say Russia and the U.S. split Europe. The U.S. gets the West, Russia gets the East. Europe is a third world jungle now.
What on earth makes you think that North America has some, you know, like, oh, let's chop up Europe?
Hey,
They're
if I was in
fucking
charge, I would
5,000
be
miles
talking to
across the
Putin.
sea.
Hey, if I were president, I'd say, Putin, Europe is a failed mess. We'll take the West, you take the East.
Yeah, influence, not actually take it. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I'm saying actually take it. The
Europe
U.S.
is a
They already got all the
failed
military
mess
in Europe, so Russia has to actually roll in the tanks, but the U.S. already has the military there. Just take it.
Well, I mean, the main reason that Europe is a complete fucking mess is because it's been completely undermined since World War II by US shenanigans. You know, I mean, West Germany's been basically an occupied country by the Brits and the US since the end of World War II, and they've imposed their will upon the German economies and you know, various other things, you know, Operation Gladioli and all of those kind of things that have gone on. Europe is a mess because, well, basically America.
America didn't help, that's for sure.
The idea that, you know, oopsie daisy, Europe can't keep their shit together, so let's carve it up, is just like, well, quite mind-boggling to my mind.
I know,
really.
it's just kind of an idea. I'm not saying I would for sure actually do that if I were in charge, but you got to look at the present. You know, you have to keep the past in mind, but the present, the fact is, Europe is a jungle. It's not a civilized country, and I know some people are like, Europe's a bunch of countries, not one country. Well, all the countries in the European Union are a disaster.
What do you mean by a jungle?
I mean, it's just not a civilization. It's a jungle now.
It's a mess.
Well, I think, you know, there is a, you know, what you're slightly doing there is conflating two things. I mean, the fact that
you don't even have freedom
EU
of speech in the UK where you are. Wouldn't you rather the US rolls in there? Well, I mean, they don't have to roll in there. They're already there, but they take over. You get freedom of speech back. Elon Musk makes sure you get freedom of speech.
You'd be able to get guns again?
Yeah, guns.
no, I mean, that's
Kick
just
out those
like
Somalians.
Insane.
Insane. I think
That's
it's insane that you're
insanity.
living as the only Englishman in a whole apartment complex with Somalians. I think America controlling the UK is a lot less insane than that.
But the thing is that our internal domestic politics and international relations are kind of tied up together, but they are separate things.
Is there anything good you can say about your home right now?
Basically, the idea of us ceding sovereignty to, you know, Trump riding in on his white horse to save us from the Somalians is bonkers.
But is there anything good you can say about the UK right now? Anything you would miss if the US took it over?
But I mean, it's
Sounds like
it's
no.
a false premise of a question.
I
you
know, it's an odd, crazy question, but is there anything that you would miss if the US took it over? Is there anything you would miss if Russia took it over?
I mean, like the idea and the way that people are kind of perceiving the geopolitics of it all is kind of mad, you know. I mean, the world could work pretty well if, you know, let's say we had a delineation line down the Atlantic where, you know, the American continent can be a powerhouse of, you know, cheap labor in some parts, technology in other parts, and, you know, the natural resources that you have. And, you know, the whole American continent, from Patagonia to kind of Alaska or whatever, could be, you know, a cohesive unit that could compete in the world economy really nicely. And, you know, we could do the same in Europe. We can have all the kind of boutique French designery, German technical achievements, and, you know, past British engineering and chemical industry, etc., along with the industrial powerhouse of Russia providing us with cheap, reliable energy. And, you know,
That would be an ideal situation.
Europe could be a massively prosperous nation, and you could have, you know, you can have the European continent, the American continent, and the Indian Chinese continent, and we could all have this rich mix of very successful and interacting sets of resources and skills, and we could all compete against each other. And the Europeans could, you know, love their American cars and import those, and you can import your Mercedes, and we can get cheap
That
Chinese
sounds very
products to
good,
fill
but
our
the matter of
kitchen.
fact is currently that's not the situation.
Well,
Currently,
no, the
you have
reason
no
is
freedom
that
in your own country. So either the people
but
of Europe need to
hang on.
rise up, or someone has to
Let me
conquer
finish.
them.
Let me finish. So, you know, that's an ideal scenario world. Now, the reason that we haven't got that is because currently we are dealing with the fallout of a long-term plan by the, you know, Department of Defense and CIA to balkanize and undermine Russia to maintain global hegemony,
Yep.
right? And that's the bottom line. Now, since the Berlin Wall fell back in the early 90s, there have been agreements in place, you know, and not an inch further east and all of that, whilst at the same time they've continued to do exactly the opposite. Now, 10 years ago in the media in the UK, the Ukrainians were reported as what they were, a basically fascist, corrupt state.
They have Nazi parades in the street.
Exactly. That were essentially a rogue nation. Now, because of US political agendas and tightening into the Democrats, people like Biden and his son Hunter, you know, they've used Ukraine as a kind of proxy toilet to do all of their shenanigans
Yep.
in. And I genuinely believe that a large, you know, the point of no return where we've managed to get to with regard to Ukraine, in the beginning of the political, you know, rough and tumble of it all, the narratives were cast in order to cover Biden's arse. You know, he's a deeply corrupt man who's been at it for years. You know, and the proof is in the pudding, in the 12th hour walking out of the White House and giving multiple members of his family immunity from prosecution, stretching back to around the time he started fucking around in Ukraine. And, you know, I think that it's something that can't be discounted, that is a major factor in where we are now.
It's a major factor, but it is a little separate from like your immigration
But
crisis.
beyond that, you also have the fact that Ukrainians have been ethnically cleansing ethnic Russians in the Donbass region
Yeah.
for the last decade. And the Putin and the Russians have repeatedly said, look, stop it. This has to stop. We've had the Minsk agreement. We've had all this stuff with Merkel, back in the day, where they've turned around and acknowledged that it was just a distraction to enable them to arm Ukraine to fight Russia. Russia's sovereignty has been repeatedly threatened. They've ended up being, forced into a situation where, how long do they allow the Ukrainian Nazis just to turn Donbass region into a meat grinder of Russians? And they took their action, and it's basically a NATO proxy war that again is going back to the US agenda of destabilizing, undermining, weakening, and balkanizing Russia to maintain their hegemony, and it's nothing more than that.
But how does all of that affect the immigration crisis in, say, the UK or European Union?
Well, they're two separate issues.
Exactly. That's why I was saying that that's not the cause of all of your issues, like your freedom of speech, your immigration. Those are some very big issues you have.
The reason why we've got issues with freedom of speech, right, is because, and I have to be a little careful what I say because I am UK based. We have got this insane situation where people can report non-criminal events that cause offence to them individually, and you will have the police around. There are people in jail for making Facebook posts, and that is one government who have completely abused their power and misinterpreted the law and are effectively using our justice system in a political way. There's no doubt about it. There's no denying it. But the fact that we have unfortunately managed to elect someone who is clearly not bound by the normal laws and expectations of public servants who are voted in by the British public, doesn't mean to say that this constitutional crisis should mean, let the Yanks walk in. It's just like they are not. It's like apples and oranges. They're just like not.
Say Trump and Musk make America better. Would you rather live in that kind of country or your current country? And just so you guys know, I am not saying Trump and Elon Musk are the savior of America, but they seem to be going in the right direction. So hopefully they do go in the right direction. I'm not saying they will, but hopefully. But the UK certainly seems a whole lot worse than the US.
I would say that Trump is the lesser evil out of him and Biden, right? And if he can manage to do some of the stuff that he's promised to do and, get rid of a lot of the corruption that has become ingrained in the political system in America.
I like that Musk said they might start persecuting looking into politicians that miraculously got a bunch of wealth while they were in office.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Elizabeth Warren's wealth, Nancy Pelosi, Schumer, all of those bastards. It's like you can't be a politician on a couple of $100,000 a year and end up being worth $78 million. It's pure in your face criminality. I mean, Pelosi's just like this, sweet, cutesy little old lady, psychopath gangster. It's insane.
I mean, she's mafia, is what she really is. Look into her family tree.
Yeah, no, I mean,
look into how many of these politicians are related, actually.
Really?
Yeah. I forget all of who they are, but if you find the actual, I remember someone one time made a family tree, and I saw the photo. But I mean, if you look into it, you can find all the relatives and stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
Pelosi's Italian mafia.
The British and the American political process and the protections, it's completely screwed. I mean, since Reagan and Thatcher, they introduced kind of, laissez-faire, neoliberal type of policy, and they unleashed a devil, that they I'm sure, fully didn't understand the implications of at the time. They were useful idiots, and the the globalist technocrats of the 90s swept in their wake, and that's where we are today. I mean, in this country, Thatcher is kind of vilified as Thatcher the milk snatcher, and the person that started the privatisation of the NHS, but she privatised catering and laundry. It was Blair who started privatising, medical procedures and all that aspect of the national health. And, his policy advisor at the time was a guy called Simon Stevens. Now, Simon Stevens, after working for Tony Blair as a special advisor, or SPAD as it's known in this country, went off to work for United Health as their CEO of global development. After which he returned when the Tories were elected and became head of the National Health Service. And over the last 10 years, we've had the, basically it's a copy and paste of United Health's rather mercenary and, predatory and profiteering healthcare model imposed upon the UK. And it doesn't matter whether it's the Tories in power or Tony Blair in power or Starmer in power. They have all pursued the same agenda. And so, and the public are completely misled about this. I mean, most of the public don't even know that Simon Stevens ran the NHS for nearly a decade. The only time that he broke cover was in the COVID propaganda. He was kind of having media opportunities, sleeves rolled up in these farcical Nightingale hospitals that they built, apparently to deal with the influx of sick people. But they couldn't even staff the hospitals properly. How are they going to start staffing exhibition halls?
So on the topic of health, I want to tell people the most important health information you'll ever hear in your whole life. Now, this is not oversimplified. This is true. This is fact. You need sleep. You need rest. You need proper nutrition. Exercise is great, but those are the 3 core things for health. And if you are missing those 3, or one of those 3, you will not only get short-term sicknesses more often, but you will develop disease. So I would say possibly even 90% of diseases or illnesses that are seen as separate and not connected, they all stem from a lack of sleep, a lack of rest, a lack of proper nutrition. Now, I don't have a study to show that, but I observe medicine in real life, and that is for sure.
I mean, certainly the case in the UK is the fundamental and core problem with our health nationally is absolutely insane nutritional advice.
If your body doesn't have all the things it needs to operate properly, it's not going to operate properly, and the problems just get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, I mean, we have an absolute epidemic in the UK of type 2 diabetes.
Oh, on the topic of diabetes, I know how you fix diabetes. I mean, people talk about, you got to eat less sugar.
I was
you need muscle. That's how you fix diabetes.
Type 2.
And that's why if you eat, go on the red meat.
No, that's just because you're cutting out the sugar. But muscle mass is a storage bank for glucose. You see this? This is full of glucose in the form of glycogen. I eat sugar. It goes to my blood for a microsecond before it's shot into the muscles. And the muscles, even when you're not using them, they are contracting at a basal rate all the time, burning through sugar. So not only does it pull the sugar out of your blood to store in the muscles instead of just lingering around the blood or going into fat and turning into body fat, but it's also burning through glucose 24/7.
Yeah, but you're not an average person,
I'm not, but I'm saying if most people put on an extra 20 pounds of muscle, they wouldn't end up pre-diabetic or diabetic later in life.
Yeah, but that's just not the reality of it. People are just given utterly shit nutritional advice in terms of
Yeah, that doesn't
food
help.
pyramid. And in this country we've had this made up narrative for, I don't know, 20 years or something. I think it was Blair's government that brought it in, this concept of 5 a day, 5 portions of fruit and vegetables a day. And it's all sugar and carbs.
So I agree that you should not eat so much sugar and carbs, but if you have enough muscle mass, now of course I'm a professional bodybuilder, professional powerlifter, but if you have enough muscle, not necessarily as much as me, you can eat as many carbs as you want. You'll never have high blood sugar. I can eat. It doesn't matter how many carbs I eat. I can eat straight sugar all day long. I'll never have high blood sugar.
But you have a metabolism and a body mass that the average person doesn't have.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The average person needs to put on more muscle.
The advice that is given is kind of, I mean...
And you don't have to be like you can just be toned up.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You add 20 pounds onto each person, and now they can eat what they want.
In this country.
But yeah, they certainly should have different dietary advice.
We have a very sedentary country. I mean, they do have a little bit of sports promotion, but it's normally promoting people to sit in their dwelling watching Sky Sports rather than actually engaging in sport.
Yep.
Part of the overall neoliberal issue we've had over the last 30 years is things selling off school playfields for developers and all that. The capacity for schools to provide health education and physical exercise has become massively diminished. And maybe in schools out in the provinces, they'll still have a football field, but that's kind of a one school in the middle of nowhere against, literally millions of children in London who have nothing more than a small playground to run around on.
Also, speaking of diabetes and insulin insensitivity, I do actually have a pre-made protocol how you can fix insulin insensitivity or pre-diabetes without putting on muscle mass. Now, ideally, you'd put on the muscle mass, but that's a longer-term process and harder for a lot of people. Now, you can also reverse it. Another method, I have guidelines for that. It's called multi-day fasting preparation or regaining insulin sensitivity, because by the time you can do a multi-day fast and feel A-okay, you're not pre-diabetic.
Speaking of fasting and all that sort of thing, all the doctors have been, with the gallbladder stones.
The what?
The gallbladder stones.
Yeah.
They're saying that doing these fastings and not eating regularly all day.
It can increase gallbladder stones, because if you don't have fat and stuff to stimulate the bile, it can start to build up. But if you're just doing some fasting once in a while, I don't think you're going to get any stones.
Yeah. And what would you suggest fasting, say, over a month?
Once a month at most for a few days.
Just for a few days?
I mean, some people are like doing multi-day fasts every couple weeks. It's like, why? If you're insulin sensitive, you don't need to fast all the time. In my opinion, backed by evidence that I've witnessed, fasting is not even that beneficial. So here's a big misconception, that you need to fast to induce autophagy. Newsflash, you don't. Autophagy happens all the time. Wow, what a shocker. It's a gradient. When you fast, you have a lot of autophagy. Well, guess what? Calorie deficit.
That's the difference.
That's the difference, but wait for it. Calorie deficit, you're also getting extra autophagy. Exercise, you're also getting extra autophagy. So let's compare if you fast 4 days a month versus if you exercise 10 days a month. And if you're in a calorie deficit 20 days a month, you're probably getting even more autophagy than the person who just sits around and fasts 4 days a month. And then ivermectin induces autophagy without exercise, fasting, or anything.
Speaking of ivermectin, the PSA's dropped.
Great.
From it was 4 and now it's 2.5.
And what about those other markers?
Going in this week to get the blood. I was going in on Saturday, but it was closed.
Because like I said, they weren't very concerning. You just got to make sure it's not a trend that's going to continue.
Got an ultrasound. Everything was exactly the same.
Yeah, but ultrasound can't see cholesterol very well.
Okay. We'll see what happens. So there you go. But what about intermittent fasting, where people just like have one meal at the end of the day?
If you like it, do it. it's all about being insulin sensitive. There's a lot of different ways to get to being insulin sensitive. You got to choose what works for you. Sadly, there's so much dogma out there, like the carnivore, vegetarian. Now, carnivore is certainly a lot better than vegetarian, but all this stuff is nonsense. It's all black or white, yes or no, good or bad. That's not how anything in life, anything in the universe works.
Okay, cool.
Also, it's great that in Belarus, speaking of sports and playgrounds, like when I was young, I quit gymnastics. I was a level 8 out of 10. 9 and 10 were preparing for Olympics. I never would have been to Olympics because I didn't start until I was too old. But I quit because my high school didn't offer gymnastics, and I would have had to pay to go to a gymnastics place 5 days a week and have my parents drive me there and back 5 days a week. In Belarus, you can do gymnastics in school for free. You want to do gymnastics? You can do gymnastics.
Speaking of Belarus, I have noticed, because I've been coming here a few years, I've been seeing a lot more larger kids.
Things are changing here.
Yeah, and is that due to devices and processed food, do you think?
I think it would be due to devices. I don't know about the food. Now, there are more McDonald's and KFCs and everything, but I don't know about the food.
Yeah, because like I said, I've noticed as you can start to notice them now.
Yeah. I mean, I've noticed some other trends changing as well.
Like what?
With non-traditional relationships.
Ooh. Oh, really? Oh, okay. I didn't know about that.
Luckily, it's still not too much, but more.
Yeah, that's picking up all those bad habits from the West.
You're speaking of those playgrounds. We got a ton here. Like, between every apartment building complex, they got the playgrounds, they got the tracks for running, they got pull-up bars, they got all the outdoor workout equipment.
Yeah.
The main place near my apartment block where children play, there's like a playground. There's 3 schools within 400 meters as well of this spot, and it used to be where the kids kicked around football, and then during COVID, all of a sudden Hutchinson Telecom turned up and put in a 5G cell tower, plonk right in the middle of it. It was just done, and it was just like, yeah, you can't do anything about it. Tough shit,
Yeah,
you know
horrible.
what I mean? Right next to 2 school playgrounds, this temporary tower, and yeah, I mean, it's just, absolutely no regard, completely surrounded by residential apartments blasting out 5G.
You know what's sad is, like, there's so few places nowadays where you don't hear any sort of high-pitched noises. Like, I go back to California especially, and it's, like, last time I went, I thought, like, I'm gonna go crazy, I need to get out of here. Like my parents live in a quiet area, but there were all these noises, and I was like, wow.
Yeah. Well, from the
the
ground up
noises
to 70,000 feet now is just full of radio waves and that from all sorts of things now.
And people can hear them sometimes.
Yeah.
One of the most irritating sounds local to here is there is a brand of sort of hire by the hour electric bikes called Line bikes, and they're littered everywhere. I mean, they're an absolute menace to pedestrians, but there is a way that you can basically steal time on them. You kind of lift them up or something and you start moving them along, and as a safety feature, they won't just lock the wheel up, so you can kind of get them going and then they won't lock up. But what they do is they make this beep 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 sound, so all day long you hear these kids who have stolen these Line bikes going up and down the street outside, just beep, 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 all day long of these stolen Line bikes, basically.
And also here, spring and summer, just all those scooters instead of people walking now. They're just...
I think that's probably a big cause, because you see kids, they're riding on scooters.
And there's 2 or 3 of them on it.
It's worse in California. It's like nobody actually uses their body anymore. It's such a shame. It's like when I hang out with friends back in California, we're in shape, and we're thinking like this whole new generation, they're pathetic. It's crazy.
That's why they did that test on those YouTubers from America, and their testosterone was like a 75-year-old man. They're only in their 20s.
I wanted to do tests on testosterone of sportsmen here. Now, I would have to pay for all those tests, didn't end up doing it. Like, I look at a lot of people's blood work, but I was thinking it'd be cool to do, like, a large sample size of sportsmen here to just be able to go, like, maybe they're up here, or, like, maybe they're not different at all. I don't know, I expect that they have higher testosterone than the average guy in America, or average sportsman there.
So, I mean, back to the old current international relations stuff, we kind of slid off into NHS and then health.
Yeah, well, if you want, I'll do
we
the.
were talking about the current sort of situation, Starmer, Macron, and whatever that new guy is called in Germany.
Okay, well,
The BlackRock guy.
I'll do a little spiel here. So the United States has just dropped a bombshell. No more intelligence flowing to Ukraine. No more military deliveries rolling off the line. That's right. Washington slamming the brakes, pulling the plug on a war it's been fueling for years. And why? Word on the street is they're cooking up to the deal with Russia, a handshake to stop the bloodshed and bring peace to a land that's been torn apart for far too long. Some call it pragmatism, others scream betrayal. But hold the phone across the Atlantic, the EU and the UK aren't having it. They're doubling down, shoveling weapons, cash and willpower into Ukraine's war chest, hell-bent on keeping this fight alive. No surrender, they cry, waving their flags of defiance. They say it's about principle, it's about standing up to tyranny, but is it? Or is it just they're too deep in the muck to climb out? So here we are, America's reaching for the off switch while Europe's cranking up the volume to 11. Ukraine's caught in the middle, a pawn in the game where the players can't agree to the rules. Will the US pull off this peace gambit with Russia? Will the EU, UK drag this war into overtime and World War III? And what does it mean for the people who've been living this nightmare day in and day out?
Good job, US, for finally doing that. I love, a little different than this, but that US aid. It's funny. It's like, well, what a shocker when you pull all that aid, all of a sudden all these organizations all around the world that are touted as natural just collapse. Like the Belarusian opposition one. Elon Musk pointed that out.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden they don't exist when there's no US aid.
They lost $30 million.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. No wonder they're fighting over there about the money, the two opposition groups.
Oh, I heard they were having issues with money even before this. Like, they promised money to the people in Belarus that would protest, and then they go to Poland, and they're supposed to be able to get their money and live in Poland, and they wouldn't give it to them. They would just show. They instructed one of the guys, like, inside, just don't open the door. Just no matter what you do, don't open the door.
Yeah, because there's one group in Poland, and it's and then the fake president lives in with her opposition.
And nobody likes her. Like, if you're one of these anti-Belarusian people and you're like, oh, well, they support... No, they don't. Nobody supports that woman.
No one.
Like, some people liked some other people for president. Sure, a small percentage. But no one liked her.
Yeah, exactly. She lost the election. She didn't win the election at all. Not even close.
Yeah, I'm glad no more intelligence, because U.S. is killing Russians by telling them exactly where to fire those missiles.
Yeah, and now the UK can't fire the Storm Shadows as well because they were using US intelligence.
Good.
So that's off the table. Even the private satellite companies in the US have pulled all the intelligence.
This is what I'm talking about with it seems like Trump and Musk are going in the right direction. This is a big thing. Pulling the US aid, pulling the intelligence.
He wants to do business with Russia. He doesn't want to...
Yeah, why wouldn't you want to?
Yeah. You see, the rumour is they've got an American company to buy the part of Nord Stream that's gone bankrupt in Europe. Then them and Gazprom would fix it.
Great.
And then the Americans would charge for the gas coming through the pipeline to the Europeans.
Sounds great. And if America doesn't take over half of Europe and let Russia take the other half, they can just let Europe turn into a nature preserve. You want to go on a safari, you don't have to go to Africa anymore.
Yeah.
Just go to Europe.
Yeah. Exactly. So, yes. So, Drew, what do you think about what the UK and France and that's doing?
Well, I mean, it's basically we've got Germany, which is a powerful nation within Europe, are in an absolute mess politically. You know, their political parties are just up the wazoo. But again, you know, like I said earlier, that's a lot of Anglo-American prodding and poking and manipulation, basically. Starmer's a very unpopular prime minister, as we've discussed, as is Macron. I mean, Macron's hanging on by the skin of his teeth. I mean, you know, there were 2 years of running riots every weekend in major French cities with the yellow vests, gilets jaunes, and then he was saved by lockdown. But you know, he's a political dead fish who's trying to maintain his relevance, and you know, in trying to do that, he's inadvertently made a declaration of war against Russia. He's been, you know, he's literally said, you know, we need to pacify Russia by weakening them militarily. And then you've got, what's her name, the head of the EU.
Van der Leyen.
Yeah, Van der Leyen. All of a sudden announcing nearly €1 trillion for military spending for peace. I mean, it's all completely insane.
It's crazy. They advocate that the only way to peace is through war. Peace is war, and war is peace.
Yeah.
It's utterly Orwellian.
Well, Bunker Housing in the chat said, I'm from Sweden. What can Russia do to us that we have not already done to ourselves?
Hey, they can do something good for you, because your government doesn't do anything good for you, apparently.
Exactly.
And yeah, you're losing your countries.
Well, you know, we've had our political class and you know, our establishment hijacked over the last generation since '97. You know, we're a fallen nation. We're in a fifth generation warfare, in a fifth generation war.
People don't understand warfare. Other people understand that there's a long-term strategy. You can spend 100, 200, 300, 500 years taking over a nation. And most people in the West don't think about that.
Well, the West do think about that. The political class think about that. But what's happened, certainly, you know, speaking from a UK perspective, is that for pretty much 10 years now, we have had our daily reality pretty much managed and nudged. You know, I mean, it is literally managed leaks, you know, a scandal hitting the fan, and you know, that goes through a news cycle before we're, you know, distracted by the next thing. I mean, it has been unrelenting in the UK, and I mean,
well, and then they release actual bioweapons, which is even worse than when they just do the information warfare.
And so, you know, basically the UK doesn't know which way is up or down, and the public are led along by the nose from one existential crisis or threat to the next. And there's never any discussion about long-term plans. I mean, you know, they talk in memes like change and, you know, getting people into work, you know, regardless of if they're in a wheelchair and blind or whatever. You know, they talk in memes, and then they terrorize us, basically, with these ongoing crises. And so, you know, most average Brits have lost any sense of long-term views and planning and things like industrial policy. Everything's been thrown out of the window and, you know, abandoned for, you know, in favour of the city, really, in this country. You know, it can generate vast GDP without any real benefit to the real economy. And, you know, we've just been run down as a country in
and
very
run
much
down
a
as a
managed
people.
way.
As you caught on to, the people are sick and they're unfit. That's a good population to have when you want to rule over people.
Yeah, and you know, add to that that for the last sort of 5, 6 years at least, we've been not only have we had this, I mean, the problem we have with immigration in the UK is very much framed as, oh, you know, these people coming across in droves to Dover, across the channel. Now, it is a problem, no doubt about it, and it is a problem that has been ongoing for so long now. It's actually physically visible. You know, the kind of dudes that you see piled into these dinghies are lurking about pretty much every town in the country
And I'm
now.
curious, what is their physical condition compared to the average Brits? Who's tougher?
I have no idea. I mean, they just look.
Just looking at him, who do you think's tougher, the average 20-year-old British kid or the 20-year-old migrant from Somalia?
I would say the migrant, because
Probably, and that's a big problem. You import a bunch of these people that are stronger than your own people, they're more aggressive than your own people. All of a sudden, they're suppressing your own people. It doesn't work as well here. Not that things are perfect here, but because people are more manly and masculine and tougher.
As I was saying,
Well, that's why Alaskan Man said 1165 in the chat said the UK and the EU are worried about Ukraine losing territory. Meanwhile, they're losing their own territory, one prayer rug at a time.
Yeah, they tell you what to do now.
that is a problem. There is, you know, I mean, it's another part of what I was saying about how the British public are so misinformed. Part of this kind of fifth generation warfare upon the nation has been an unrelenting narrative of diversity, inclusion, all of these positive ideas that have basically been weaponized. So, you know, the average Brit wouldn't want to cause offence by suggesting that, you know, that having all these foreigners coming is a problem. But we've had like 8 years of unrelenting media narratives of the far right being a threat, things like incels, and the first kind of social attack upon groups of people.
Hey, you know who doesn't have incels? All those migrants, because they just rape them when they want them.
Right? You know, there was this kind of sudden sort of popping up of this narrative that any sort of above middle-aged white Englishman is somehow a gammon, and you know, they're just old boomer racists and blah blah.
Well, they taught us in California. We just need to wait for them all to die off.
Oh, we've got that narrative as well. But I mean, basically, you know, there has been a pretty much unrelenting undermining of kind of masculine leadership, wisdom of age, and all of those kind of things. You know, that legacy skills, they like to call them. I mean, in the NHS, the way that they refer to GPs who are kind of, you know, in their 40s and 50s and were trained before this kind of massive culture change in the NHS. They're given terms like legacy skill, legacy human resources, and
is this in a positive manner or negative?
Sorry?
Is this a positive thing, like that they know more?
No,
or is
it's
it
a negative thing. They're you know, these old doctors, they're old duffers, and you know, their ideas are dated, and you know, their legacy.
Because you know what's sad is the problem I saw with a lot of students in this generation is due to the internet and communications and everything. Most people cheat, and they think it's harmless. Like, oh no, I just got to pass. Well, when you actually learn all of the material, like say you're getting a chemistry degree, you learn all that material, you can actually run a lab and make stuff. You just cheat on everything. You can't do anything. That, like people talk about, we hire these young kids, they can't do, well, because they cheated their way through university. They don't know anything. Everybody cheats nowadays. Everybody. And now except for me. I never cheat.
And now with AI, it'll be worse.
Yeah, no one knows anything. It's crazy.
Anyway, so yeah, I mean, we've been badly misinformed in this country. The kind of slow creep of you know, almost portraying critical journalism as some form of terrorism or something, has also been something that has been an increasing normalized thing.
It's got to be normal to kill terrorists.
No, I mean I'm talking about news like things like RT being banned in the UK, Russia Today. I mean, if the West are so in the right and what have you, that and Putin and his propaganda machine are so just full of shit, then why do they feel the need to so completely shut them down? Surely if they were spouting such shit, it would be self-evident, and and people could mock it for what it is. But instead of which, every single news conduit coming from that side of the argument has been shut down, and anyone who is an independent, critically thinking journalist is treated with scorn.
Oh, Alaska Man said in the chat, what would it take to reverse the anti-Russian narrative?
I'm not sure on a global or a nationwide level, but I know that most people who know me in real life, they have changed their mind on things just from talking. It's like people here, the ones that used to look up to the U.S. or think things there are so perfect and great, just talking with them, telling them the reality of the situation. Now, I have had some of them go, that's not real, like, that's just propaganda. I'm like, no, I lived through that, like, that actually happened. They're like, no, that doesn't happen. I'm like, it actually happened. But yeah, when you let them see that Russia and Belarus are a country of strength and masculinity, of righteousness, of law and order, clean streets, no bums, no crime, basically, people like that. Like, I talk to police in California, they like it. I talk to random people at the store in California, they like it. Everybody likes that. Everybody's ready for law and order, just normal society.
Well, like when people come here from other countries, they're shocked what they've been told and the reality.
Yeah, but I do think that if you come here, if you don't stay long enough, that programming can stay in your head, and it warps your perception of everything. It takes some time for that to break down. You go, actually, it's a really normal place. Like, I don't need to worry that they're going to just arrest me randomly on the street. Like, I've been here a while, and in the beginning, I was a little nervous. Like, maybe they are, like... But then I realized, no, it's actually a really good, normal, rational place run by... When you have a country run by normal white people, it's a pretty normal, rational country. You don't have to worry that there's some crazy, weird laws and they're going to persecute you for no reason.
Well, the guys from the UK, we were in the shopping centre the other day, one of the big ones, and they said to me, have you noticed something different here? And I was like, no. He said, there's only one security guard.
I never thought about that.
Yeah. Well, I never thought about it either, but, obviously coming from the UK as well, there's lots of security guards in the shopping centres. And then also they said they laughed. We went past, there's little stalls in the middle of the shops. There's one there with just lots of handbags and everything. No one there, right?
Yeah.
And they said, within a couple of days people would just be stealing on me. It's just like, no, that doesn't happen here.
Yeah, I mean...
it's quite funny. No, it's funny when they start, when you've been here for a while, you sort of forget about all those things.
Though. I mean, England has completely turned into a zero-trust society.
Well, I remember in England in the 80s, you didn't even need ID to open a bank account.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then as they started getting more people from outside, that changed because, fraud, blah, 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 blah.
And something you got to be careful of when you spend a lot of time here is your guard gets let down, because it can go down here. You go back to somewhere like California or New York or the UK, you better bring your guard back up quickly, because it's going to get you in trouble if you're just going around relaxed.
Leave your phone there.
Yeah.
Oh, shit's gone again. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, not even just like stuff getting taken. I'm talking about crazies doing physical acts to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it is running the gauntlet now. I mean, for me, where I live...
and I'm guessing you don't have a gun where you live.
No, the UK... well, Tony Blair, again, he disarmed the nation, basically. Yeah.
I thought it was funny when... A little different, but...
You can't even defend yourself in this country. And, if you're assaulted in this country... and the person who assaulted you makes a counterclaim, oh, he said something racist to me or something, then the police will back the person who just assaulted you. I had a life-changing injury to my neck in 2014. I'd just gone out nipped out literally to buy some milk to make tea, and I didn't take my phone with me, and I got attacked. And the big lad that attacked me, a black guy, said, oh, he called me a blah blah, right? And I didn't, but the police's attitude was like, fuck off, mate, or we'll nick you. And I still am in pain right now every day with a neck injury I got 10 years ago.
And that's horrible.
Never had it managed to be properly looked at by the NHS either.
Well, the sad reality with neck and spinal injuries are, not to get rid of your hopes, but they don't tend to get fixed by doctors and surgeons.
Well, I've had nothing done to it. Nothing. I got handed a fifth generation photocopy of some exercises to do, and that's what physiotherapy in the NHS is now.
Now, it's going to sound like a letdown, and I haven't seen your imaging or know anything about your neck, but in general, I would say you're probably actually better off doing those exercises than getting a surgery, because usually they're going to make things worse with a surgery. I mean, there are exceptions.
I wouldn't get a surgery. I need some
painkillers.
I do need exercise, but I also need, because my neck is so frozen now, I need some physical therapy in addition to exercise. I did try doing the exercise when I first got the injury, but it had me in bed for a couple of days. The injury hadn't been seen to at all. I got an X-ray, and that is that. One X-ray.
Have you got an MRI
casualty
yet?
Nothing. Absolutely jack fucking shit in 10 years. Despite going back
you
again
have to,
and again.
you have to get
and
an
again.
MRI. So if you have to fly to Belarus to get that for $100, whatever you got to do, you got to get an MRI, because without the MRI, you don't really know the condition of your neck.
But anyway, I mean, we're digressing into medical minutiae
But
again.
message me
But
after the show,
the fact
because I'll help you.
that I was minding my own business, going out to get milk, right? I had to come home to call the police, right? Because the also African manager of the local ASDA refused to call the police. And basically I was told to fuck off by the police. I tried taking it up the command chain, contacting and emailing the local police station, and was equally told to fuck off as well.
It's evil.
And there's no redress to the law in this country anymore. It's like out the window. I mean, maybe if you're an immigration case and you want legal aid, yeah, sure, it's fucking there.
Well, and anyone who hasn't experienced serious injuries doesn't know just how much they destroy your life. For someone to be able to just cause permanent physical injury to someone else, that's evil. To not punish them, to not try to prevent it.
It's been pretty soul destroying. I mean, the Met Police in London, they've made I haven't had much interaction with the police in London. I'm a kind of law-abiding, working person.
I've had interactions with the police here, and that's part of what allowed me to realize how Belarus really is, because all my interactions were overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah, well, it's unfortunately not the case in my situation. I was roughed up in a cell at 19, sort of after being in the wrong place at the wrong time and being so nervous I couldn't remember what I was doing earlier on that day. So they took it upon themselves to rough me up in the cell. That was my first real experience of London police, and it hasn't gone well from there. From the simplest thing of reporting a stolen bicycle to reporting vandalism going on, it's a pointless exercise.
I reported a taxi driver trying to rip me off, and the police came. I can't remember if it was 3 of them. I think there were 3 of them, but this taxi driver wouldn't leave me alone. I went to a nightclub. It was empty. I come outside. He's like, hey, I know this other place. Let's go to it. I'm like, okay. And we get there, and I look, it's a strip club. And I'm like, no, I don't want. And then he's like, oh, well, you owe me, I forget how much, like 200 rubles for the strip club, and then you owe me 50 rubles for the taxi drive. And I'm like, no. And I had more money in my pocket, of course, but I took out a 20, and I go, this is all you're getting. And he's like, no. And I left, and he just followed me. I'm like walking and walking, and he just kept following and following and following me. So eventually, I went into a restaurant. My Russian wasn't perfect at the time, so I asked the waiter to call the police. What's funny is the taxi driver actually was like, call the police, call the police. And I'm actually like, I'm calling the police. And he's like, oh. It's like, oh, yeah, dude, I'm actually going to call them. The police come in an unmarked van, and I was a little worried at first. Like, are these his buddies? Or, oh, so get this. The taxi driver thought I was the biggest moron on earth. He says, come with me to go meet my boss and discuss this. I'm like, sure, dude, I'm going to go ride with you to the middle of nowhere so you can try to do whatever. Nah, but I called the police. The three of them came in their van, wearing military uniforms. Everything went great. I rode in their van with them to the police station. We talked along the whole way. They went to bat for me with their chief or whoever it was. And they all recognized that the taxi driver was just being a you-know-what. I'm trying to avoid bad words on here.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, paid 20 rubles. The police tried to say to their chief I should pay nothing because the guy's, not a good person. But I paid the 20 rubles, and that was that. I had nothing else I wanted to do that night, so I'm like, hey, I'm going to waste this guy's whole night going to the police station because I got nothing to do, and he's going to lose all his other potential customers. Yeah, the police were great. Very helpful, very nice people. And I've had other experiences with them. I'm not going to get into details of those experiences, but very professional. Yeah, you don't need to worry about corruption here. You don't need to worry about crazy draconian law. Like, it's very reasonable, rational, and appropriate. Very lawful.
As I've said before, I was flying the drone where I shouldn't be, and they were quite, after they found I wasn't spying, fair enough, because it was near a military place. They were quite frank. There was like, stupid tourists, don't do it again, essentially.
Yeah, I've been brought to the police station
for
investigations.
I was there for 4 hours while they were checking it out.
And it's all by the book. It's all good.
Yeah.
They're not going to... What's funny is I talked with my father about one of the times I was brought to the police station, and he's like, just bear with it if they start torturing you. I'm like, they're not torturing me. Like, luckily... Like, my father, he thought they're going to, tie me up and torture me. Because that's the American view of Belarus and Russia.
Yeah. Well, Jan, that was just here, his family, brothers and sisters and all that, was saying, don't go, you won't come back. There's no embassy here. And so we took a photo of him outside the UK embassy.
But my father knows now that Belarus is great. Amazing place.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, guys, I'm going to play about 30 minutes of video of where we went around the last week with Jan and Michael. So if you want to hike it, thanks for coming on. And then at the end of that'll be the end of the show. There'll be no show on Wednesday. I'm going to have a week off. I've got other things to do. And I'll be back next Sunday. So we're going to play 30-plus minute video of places in
That's
Minsk.
a long video. I might leave before
Oh,
that.
yeah. That's what I'm saying. Go.
So, if you want real health, medical, fitness information, check out my Rumble that I'm going to be putting videos on. He's got a link up there. It's currently titled Hutchings Health. You can also check out my website, andrewhutchings.org, and my Instagram and my Twitter, at Andre Hutch, ANDREYHUTCH. We live in a time when it's really hard to be healthy. Not only are there a bunch of pollutants in our environment, unhealthy food, unhealthy lifestyle, but there's also a paucity of really good information. A lot of people think they have good information because of YouTube and other internet sources. They don't. That's a sad reality. You want good information, come to me.
And also Andrew's helped me with one of my issues.
You want to not say what it is?
Oh, no, I've got gallbladder stones, and he's helped me with that.
Well, the pancreas is the really concerning thing.
Yeah, but it's, he's, what did you...
Ursodeoxycholic acid
That's
for
what it is.
cholesterol,
Yeah.
gallbladder stones.
Yeah, and that reduces the size and all that sort of thing. So that's been working, which is great.
Well, really important because the pancreatic enzymes were high in your pancreas. If that gets too damaged, it's irreversible, and it will destroy everything else inside of you.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, thanks for Andrew for coming on.
Thanks for having me on.
Duke. Thanks for Drew coming on. Appreciate it. And we'll be back. I'll be back next Sunday. And like I said, I'm going to play a video now for about 30 minutes of places around Belarus that we went to in the last week with the guys. So
I'll watch a few minutes of
thanks,
it.
Drew.
Cheers, mate.
And that is that motorway, whether 200 meters,
No, 400 meters.
400 we're going for.
Going in.
400 meters. Safety up.
This is the Stalin Line.
I've been there.
What do you think?
I liked it. I don't know what to say. I had some good cold borscht there. It was interesting seeing all the stuff.
The cafes were closed when we went. It's winter though, so.
I didn't fire anything because a lot of the stuff it was just fake rounds.
Yeah, these guys did like this.
Clear it.
The blanks, and then they have like little explosions at the
Yeah,
end.
yeah.
Fuck me, you defenders.
It was loud though.
Yeah, I told my wife we're not going to spend money on blanks.
Yeah. We went to the gun range the other day, which is coming up as well. Obviously, this has slowed down a lot.
Yeah. But even on full speed videos, when I've shot AK-47s, you can just see that gigantic flash coming out.
Yeah.
Well, no flash.
not like anything else you've seen before. It's cool.
Наши защитники номер 61 к ставке!
So,
Just
if we haven't got an email back by the time we finish shooting.
Wasn't sure if it worked. I was lucky. I was going to go and burn them. Good group.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Ooh.
Good group.
Поясано.
No one claims it.
Ah, yes, finally. More below.
Ready? Yep.
Very good.
means her father's name was Vitaly. A father, or something like female names were named after the mother.
Well, it looks like you can, yeah.
We're allowed to do this, Dave? Troop transport ones has a higher thing inside.
It's pulled up and it's always going the same speed.
Maybe.
Oh, this is so cool. Look at this. Oh my gosh.
Here, I'll let you get.
And here's the MiG.
You can do it, that's all.
Just wanted to chill out a little bit.
Well, I hope it's got the address. I can't see the address. I hope it is.
History here.
Big 17. This is huge.
Right here, Dave.
Thing is, even if it was in English, I think it's just the wind, isn't it?
Oh, jam! Fuck's sake! I thought I turned on the engine or something.
That would be funny.
I don't think the battery has any juice.
Oh, I know, but it's just whenever I press that button, then it starts shaking.
What happens
like,
if I pull the trigger? I don't.
I bet I can work about the bed. Work to the bed that one. Roll forward.
Post this system.
Khatyn State Memorial Complex. The tragedy of Khatyn. You will not find this small Belarusian village on any of the most detailed geographic map today. It was destroyed by German fascists in spring in 1943. The massacre occurred on March 22, 1943. Brutal fascists rushed into the village and encircled it. The inhabitants of the village did not know anything about the fact that in the morning a fascist motor convoy was attacked by fire on a motorway just 6 kilometers away from Khatyn. As a result, a German officer was killed. The inhabitants of Khatyn were innocent, however their death sentence had already been pronounced. All of them, young and old, women and kids, were driven from their houses out into the shed. The fascists roused the sick from their beds with rifle butts. They had mercy neither for the old nor for women with infants in their arms. The family of Joseph and Anna Barnowski with their 9 children was among them. So were Alex and Alexandra Novitsky with their 7 children. Similarly, there were 7 kids in the family of Kozimir and Elena Ayutko. The youngest boy was only 1 year old. Vera Yaskevich was also driven into the shed with her 7-week-old son Tolik. Little Lena Yaskevich first tried to hide in the farmstead, but then decided to take safe shelter in the wood. Fascists' bullets were not able to catch up with the running girl, therefore one of the fascists rushed to her and, having overtaken, killed the girl before the very eyes of her father, who was distraught with grief. Among the perished there were also 2 people from other villages who by chance found themselves in Khatyn at the time. These were Anton Kunkevich from the village of Yurkovichi and Kristina Slonskaya from the village of Kamenu. None of the adults managed to escape. Only 3 kids, Volodya Yaskevich, his sister Sonia, and another boy Sasha Helikovich by name, were able to hide from the fascists. When all people were finally in the shed, the door was locked and the Nazis covered the shed with straw, spilt benzene over and set fire to it. In a moment the wooden shed was ablaze. The children were crying and suffocating in the smoke. The adults were trying to rescue them. The doors of the shed could not bear the force and the pressure of the dozens of people, and so they crashed down. Horror-stricken people in their burning clothes took to heels. But the fascists with their machine guns dispassionately killed those who tried to escape from the flames of fire. 149 people, including 75 children under age, were burned alive. The youngest baby was only 7 weeks old. The village was then looted and burned to the ground. The girls from 2 different families, Maria Fedorovich and Yulia Klimovich, were saved by miracle. They managed to leave the shed and crawl to the nearby wood. Half dead or half alive, all burned, they were found by the inhabitants of the village of Korostany of the Kamenu Village Council. Unfortunately, this village was later also burned to the ground and the 2 girls were killed. In the village of Khatyn, only 2 children survived. They are a 7-year-old Viktor Zhelepovich and a 12-year-old Anton Barnovsky. A young woman, Anna Zhelepovich by name, was also in the shed. Together with some other horror-stricken people in their burning clothes, she tried to leave the shed, which was ablaze. She was firmly holding her son Visha's hand. A moment later she was fatally wounded, and as she was falling down on the ground she covered the son with her body. The child was wounded in his arm. He lay on the ground under his mother's corpse till the Nazis finally left the village. Anton Barnovsky was also wounded in his leg by an explosive bullet. And so the fascists mistook him for a dead boy. Inhabitants of neighboring villages picked up all those injured and severely burnt children and brought them to an orphanage in a small town of Pleshenitsy, where they were raised after the war. The only adult witness to the Khatyn massacre, a 56-year-old village smith Joseph Kaminsky, also wounded and burnt, recovered consciousness late at night when the fascists were already gone. He had to suffer a hard blow, though. He found his injured son among the corpses of the fellow villagers. The boy was fatally wounded in the abdomen and totally burnt. He died later in the arms of his father. And so the only sculpture of the Khatyn Memorial Complex, The Unconquered Man, was based on this tragic story in the life of Joseph Kaminsky. The tragedy of Khatyn is not just an occasional episode of this war. It is one of the 1,000 facts which testify to the existence of the targeted genocide policy regarding the population of Belarus. And the Nazis were pursuing this policy during all those years of German occupation. Hundreds of similar disasters occurred within the 3 years, 1941, 1944, of the occupation of the Belarusian land. Only 6 people are recognized as witnesses to the tragedy of Khatyn. They are 5 children and an only adult. Yaskevich Vladimir Antonovich, born in 1930 in the village of Khatyn, died in 2008. Yaskevich Feokina Sofia Antonovna, born in 1934 in the village of Khatyn. Zhelepovich Viktor Andreyevich, born in 1934 in the village of Khatyn. Zhelepovich Alexander Petrovich, born in 1930 in the village of Khatyn, died in 1994. Barnovsky Anton Iosifovich, born in 1930 in the village of Khatyn, died tragically in 1969. Kaminsky Iosif Iosifovich, born in 1887, died in 1973. Of building material. Granite was brought from open pits in Ukraine. White marble was brought from Russia. The first part of the complex was opened in 1968. The final opening ceremony was held on June 5, 1969. The solemn morning ceremony started in Minsk. Representatives of all districts gathered in Victory Square. There were veterans of the Great Patriotic War, Russian, Ukrainian, Georgian, Moldavian and other delegations. There were foreign guests as well.
Can you stick it all over where it's brown? Oh, you stick it where it's brown and it greens it up really fast.
Of Minsk, Belarus, originally built by the Nazis in the summer of 1941, on the site of a Soviet kolkhoz, a collective farm. The camp initially held Soviet prisoners of war that were captured after the German advance on the Soviet Union, which began on June 22, 1941, known as Operation Barbarossa. But it became a Vernichtungslager, or an extermination camp, on May 10, 1942, when the first transport of Jews arrived there, from Germany, Poland, the Netherlands, Austria, and the present-day Czech Republic. Many were even killed before reaching the camp, as they were brought to the nearby Blagovshchina and Shashkovka forests, where they were shot in the back of the neck. Most of the victims were lined up in front of large pits and shot. Tractors then flattened the pits out. The prisoners in the camp were forced to sort through the victims' possessions and maintain the camp. However, the primary purpose of the extermination camp was the eradication of the Jewish population of Minsk and the surrounding areas by means of mobile gas chambers. In 1943, the Germans began mass extermination of the prisoners in the camp, which continued into 1944. On June 28, 1944, as the Red Army approached the region, the Nazis bombed the camp in an attempt to obliterate evidence of its existence, in coordination with the goals of Action 1005. They locked up the remaining prisoners as well, and burned the buildings to the ground. But the Soviets are said to have discovered 34 grave pits, some measuring as much as 50 meters in length and 3 to 4 meters in depth, located in the Blagovshchina forest. The estimates of the number of people killed there are 206,500, and that 65,000 Jews were also murdered at the camp.
That's a better angle. Recording with another camera as well.
Of Minsk, Belarus, originally built by the Nazis in the summer of 1941, on the site of a Soviet kolkhoz, a collective farm. The camp initially held Soviet prisoners of war that were captured after the German advance on the Soviet Union, which began on June 22, 1941, known as Operation Barbarossa. But it became a Vernichtungslager, or an extermination camp, on May 10, 1942, when the first transport of Jews arrived there, from Germany, Poland, the Netherlands, Austria, and the present-day Czech Republic. Many were even killed before reaching the camp, as they were brought to the nearby Blagovshchina and Shashkovka forests, where they were shot in the back of the neck. Most of the victims were lined up in front of large pits and shot. Tractors then flattened the pits out. The prisoners in the camp were forced to sort through the victims' possessions and maintain the camp. However, the primary purpose of the extermination camp was the eradication of the Jewish population of Minsk and the surrounding areas by means of mobile gas chambers. In 1943, the Germans began mass extermination of the prisoners in the camp, which continued into 1944. On June 28, 1944, as the Red Army approached the region, the Nazis bombed the camp in an attempt to obliterate evidence of its existence, in coordination with the goals of Action 1005. They locked up the remaining prisoners as well, and burned the buildings to the ground.
But the Soviets are said to have discovered 34 grave pits, some measuring as much as 50 meters in length and 3 to 4 meters in depth, located in the Blagovshchina forest. The estimates of the number of people killed there are 206,500, and that 65,000 Jews were also murdered.